If you've ever been judged by the way you look, the way you dress, or the way you walk into a room, this story will stay with you. It's about dignity, resilience, and a kind of silent power that doesn't need to scream to be heard. It's the story of how one woman turned embarrassment into empowerment and prejudice into poetic justice. But what started with a humiliating laugh in a luxury showroom ended in a lesson no one at that dealership will ever forget. It was a sweltering Tuesday afternoon when Simone Washington stepped out of her weathered old Jeep and into the high-gloss, glass-paneled world of Marlowe Luxury Motors. She wore simple flip-flops, a faded t-shirt, and had her curly hair pulled into a high bun that had seen better days. No makeup, no jewelry, no entourage, just a quiet, calm look in her deep brown eyes. Simone didn't look like money. She didn't talk like money. And that's exactly why the salesman had already decided who she was before she said a single word. "Can I help you?" he asked, barely glancing up from his phone. Simone smiled. "Yes, I was wondering if I could take a look at that Ferrari on the platform. The red one." His laugh was instantaneous, sharp like a slap. "That's a display model. And honestly, ma'am," he said, sizing her up with a smirk, "you probably want to check out something more within reach. Maybe a pre-owned Audi? Or a compact Lexus?" She didn't flinch. "I'd like to test drive the Ferrari." He looked around as if searching for a hidden camera. Then, lowering his voice, he leaned in slightly. "Look, I'm just trying to save you some embarrassment. That car's worth more than most people's homes. You really think you can afford it?" There it was. The tone. Not just dismissive, disrespectful. And for Simone, it wasn't new. She'd heard versions of that voice all her life. From professors who assumed she didn't belong in their Ivy League lecture halls. From business partners who smiled politely while ignoring her in boardrooms. From banks that offered worse rates than her less qualified peers. But this time, something inside her settled. Not anger, not frustration. Focus. Simone gave a small nod, turned around, and walked out. No argument, no fuss, no tears. But as she walked past the glistening windows of the showroom, her reflection looked back at her with a calm sort of fire. She didn't go home. Not yet. Instead, she drove straight to the edge of downtown, to a tall building with a marble lobby where her name carried weight, not because of the clothes she wore, but because of the company she built. Simone Washington wasn't just anybody. She was the silent investor behind one of the fastest-growing green tech companies in the state. She didn't flash wealth. She didn't crave attention. But she owned things with value, with influence. And she was about to own something else. A week later, the staff at Marlowe Luxury Motors came into work and found an unexpected email from corporate. Effective immediately, the dealership has been acquired under new ownership. Please prepare for an all-staff meeting at 10 a.m. New policies will be discussed. Confused, the staff gathered. Some looked anxious, others curious. And then Simone walked in. Not in flip-flops this time, but in a crisp white suit, heels clicking like clockwork across the showroom floor. Her hair was pulled back smooth, her posture straight, her gaze unflinching. The salesman from before? He turned ghost white. But Simone didn't even look at him. Not yet. She stood in front of the staff, folded her hands, and said, "Good morning. I'm Simone Washington. As of today, I'm the new owner of this dealership." A stunned silence filled the room. She smiled, not smug, not vengeful. Just calm, collected, empowered. "I believe every customer who walks through that door deserves respect, regardless of what they wear, what they drive, or how much money you think they have. That's how I run all my businesses. And it's how this one will be run, starting now." She paused. Then, finally, she looked directly at the salesman who'd laughed at her. "You'll report directly to me. I trust you'll remember my face now." His jaw clenched. But he nodded. The rest of the staff? They nodded, too. Some even smiled. Because deep down, they knew the game had changed. But that was only the beginning. Behind Simone's calm announcement was a deeper mission. one that no one in that room could have guessed. Because Simone hadn't just bought a dealership, she'd inherited a problem, one that went deeper than a single rude employee, one that reached all the way into the roots of the company itself. And what she was about to uncover would shake more than just the showroom floor. Simone didn't buy the dealership to prove a point. That would have been too easy. She bought it because she saw something no one else did. See, while most people looked at luxury car dealerships and saw fast engines and sleek exteriors, Simone saw numbers, ugly numbers, disparities, patterns. She had run the data. Minorities, especially black women, were routinely offered worse financing terms, denied test drives, and undervalued on trade-ins. Not just at Marlowe Luxury Motors, but across the industry. The numbers didn't lie. So when she sat down in her new glass-walled office overlooking the showroom, Simone didn't just look at the sales reports. She asked for personnel files, security footage, customer complaint logs, everything. What she found confirmed what she already suspected. The salesman who'd laughed at her, his name was Craig, had a long list of notes from previous managers, flagging his attitude towards certain customers. But those notes were buried deep. No one had ever followed up. Worse, the dealership had settled 3 quiet discrimination complaints in the last 2 years. Paid out. Brushed under the rug. Same script. Different day. But it wasn't just Craig. The culture was broken. Sales meetings were filled with locker room jokes and subtle code words. Be on alert when a young black man in sneakers walked in. Watch the bag if a woman came in with kids. Window shopper was a nickname they used for anyone they didn't think could afford a test drive. It was the kind of casual racism that hides behind grins and handshakes. But Simone didn't explode. She didn't start firing people left and right. That wasn't her style. Instead, she started watching. Quietly. Closely. For 2 weeks, she came in every morning before anyone else. Walked the lot. Watched the team. She had cameras moved. Had phones audited. Even posed as a customer herself, once again dressed down, wearing oversized shades and a hoodie, just to see who would help her. Only one person did, a young receptionist named Jordan. Jordan was barely 23, fresh out of community college, working her way through night classes. She treated every customer with the same warmth, whether they walked in wearing a Rolex or a worn-out backpack. Simone noticed, and she remembered. Then came the first change. At the next staff meeting, Simone introduced a new company policy. All test drives, regardless of customer appearance, would be granted unless there was a clear, documented reason for denial. Craig raised his hand. So, we just hand the keys to anyone off the street now? Simone didn't blink. We hand the keys to people who ask. Yes, that's what we do. We sell cars, not stereotypes. A few chuckles echoed. Craig didn't laugh. The second change? She announced surprise mystery shoppers, some posing as cash buyers, others as credit-challenged clients. All diverse in age, race, gender. Every interaction would be reviewed. Every single one. People started getting nervous. Suddenly, the fake smiles got a little more real. The posturing turned into politeness. And Jordan? She started helping train the team at Simone's quiet suggestion. But things didn't settle. In fact, they got worse before they got better. Late one evening, just after closing, Simone walked into her office and found a man waiting for her. Tall, well-dressed, mid-50s, a silver watch gleaming on his wrist. "Ms. Washington," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Richard Marlowe. You've been making waves." Richard was the son of the original owner. Though he'd sold his stake years ago, he still held influence in the luxury auto world. Whispers, connections, pressure points. Simone shook his hand. "I hear you're upset about the culture," he said, sitting without being asked. "But you have to understand, this is a high-end business. Clients have expectations, and so do employees. You start flipping too many things upside down, you could tank the brand." Simone leaned back in her chair, calm as ever. Are you here to give me advice or a warning? He smirked. Call it friendly concern. From someone who's seen how these things go. She didn't answer, just opened her drawer, pulled out a folder, and slid it across the desk. Inside, a complete dossier. Complaints, settlements, losses due to mismanaged customer relations. The numbers were damning. Richard didn't speak. I'm not here to break the brand, Simone said softly. I'm here to rebuild it. Stronger, smarter, more honest. And I don't care who that makes uncomfortable. He stood up. Well, you've made your point. She watched him walk out, a little slower than when he came in. But that night, Simone didn't feel triumphant. She felt the weight. Because making waves means people get wet. And some drown. The next day, someone keyed her car. 2 nights later, a false complaint was filed anonymously, claiming Simone had mishandled a financial deal. It was investigated, quickly disproven, but the message was clear. Someone wanted her gone. But Simone had survived worse than threats. She had built empires from ashes. She'd been underestimated, overlooked, ignored, and still kept climbing. This dealership wasn't going to break her. If anything, it was about to make her stronger. Because what happened next would shift the ground under everyone's feet. Simone knew she was being watched. Every time she turned a corner, every late-night email that accidentally copied the wrong people, every whispered conversation that suddenly stopped when she walked by, she felt it. But the pressure didn't break her. It refined her. And just when everyone thought she might fold, Simone launched her boldest move yet. She unveiled the Equal Drive Initiative. It wasn't just a policy. It was a promise. The dealership would publicly commit to equitable treatment of every customer, regardless of race, gender, appearance, or financial background. Salespeople would be retrained. Finance options restructured. Incentives offered for staff who maintained high ethical standards alongside strong performance. The announcement made local headlines. Some cheered, others scoffed. Inside the dealership, a quiet line was drawn. Jordan and a few other younger employees embraced the change with open arms. But the old guard, Craig and his clique, they mocked it behind closed doors, called it woke nonsense, said Simone was ruining the luxury experience. But change doesn't ask for permission. It just moves. And it moved fast. Within a month, customer satisfaction scores spiked. Test drive requests increased by 22%. Sales went up, not down. Word was spreading that this place was different. Welcoming. Fair. Real. But then, the final test came. A man walked in wearing baggy jeans, a hoodie, and dusty sneakers. No appointment. No flashy watch. He asked to see the Porsche 911 Turbo. Craig was working the floor. And Craig, still convinced he knew a buyer when he saw one, gave the man a long, slow up and down. Then smirked. The Toyota dealership's down the street, he said. Trust me, way more your speed. The man smiled. I'm actually interested in this one. The Porsche. Craig laughed. Come on, man. You serious? The man didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, just nodded and walked out. What Craig didn't know was that the man in sneakers wasn't just any customer. He was Simone's cousin. And the whole thing? It was planned. 2 hours later, Simone called an emergency meeting. Everyone gathered, curious. She walked in with her cousin at her side, introduced him, and played the security footage. Every word, every smirk, every look. Craig paled. Simone turned to the staff. Let this be a final lesson. You don't know someone's story by looking at their shoes. You don't measure worth by watches or wallets. You measure it by how someone treats people, especially when they think no one's watching. Then she looked at Craig. You're dismissed. Effective immediately. And just like that, the man who once told Simone she probably couldn't afford the car was now unemployed by the woman who owned the keys to everything he once controlled. But Simone wasn't done. She promoted Jordan, now the youngest assistant general manager in the region. She increased wages for support staff. She brought in outside consultants to help other luxury dealerships revamp their own internal policies. Her Equal Drive initiative became a movement, picked up in national trade journals, featured in business magazines. One morning, a delivery truck pulled up to the dealership. Inside, a crimson-red Ferrari. Simone walked out, smiled, and nodded to the valet. Craig's old position, now filled by a former mechanic Simone had promoted. Park it inside, front and center. The showroom gleamed as the car was rolled into place. Right under a brand new sign, it read, "Everyone deserves a seat at the wheel." And that, my friend, is how Simone Washington flipped a moment of public humiliation into a masterclass in leadership, grace, and power. Not by shouting, not by seeking revenge, but by changing the rules of the game and owning the whole board. Comebacks aren't just about proving someone wrong. They're about proving yourself right when no one else believed you could. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think twice about judging someone too quickly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. At Comeback Stories, we bring you real, powerful narratives of resilience, redemption, and quiet strength. Tales that prove it's never too late for a second chance. Your next favorite story might just be the next one we tell.